I recently had a lore discussion on the Cyno mains subreddit, and it made me realize that there is a certain piece of Genshin lore that a lot of people seem to not be aware of, so let's jump into it. For a quick background, the post which led to this discussion was a slow motion video of Cyno's ult animation shared by user Artoviler, and this raised a question in the heart of one of the Cyno main residents, NLiLox. Where does his other finger go? That is a great question to which I know the answer. All 10 of Cyno's fingers are in fact intact underneath the purple claw. What you're seeing here is actually Cyno gaining an extra 8 fingers, making him the playable character who consistently has the most fingers in all of Genshin. And for the lore enthusiasts out there, you'll know that there was one other character who wore this crown together with Cyno, and that is Zethos. Unfortunately, Zethos is no longer tied with Cyno in this category as he lost the ability to produce the extra 8 fingers. This makes Zethos quite mid in terms of finger production and drastically reduces his ranking on the finger tier list. Now, some finger lore researchers have argued that Razor is matched with Cyno for the most consistent amount of fingers. However, I personally believe Razor's wolf spirit is a little too detached from Razor's body to actually count as his own extra fingers. Because of this inconsistency, I unfortunately have to say that Razor is pretty mid. That said, seeing as there isn't a lot of available lore on Razor's wolf spirit, I'm leaving this up for discussion. I am willing to accept that he could be on par with Cyno's finger supremacy if someone is able to back up their claim well enough, but because this is a bit of a gray area, I'll just give Razor his own separate tier that we can alter at a later time. Okay, so moving on, in terms of most fingers of all time, the winner is Raiden Shogun, whose finger count is not 10, not 20, but 40 fingers. And following in tow with 30 fingers was Scaramouche. However, the consistency of these fingers were very short-lived, and their current forms fall short in comparison to Cyno's extra finger supremacy. Furthermore, it is argued that because the multi-finger owning boss forms of Raiden Shogun and Scaramouche were never playable, they could never hold the title of most fingers in the first place. This, unfortunately, lands both Raiden and Scaramouche as mid. Now, there is one more slightly confusing topic that I do want to clear up before moving forward, and this is on a character which has been very hotly debated since the start of Genshin, actually since the release of the Webtoon. This is Genshin's Dark Horse, who may potentially hold the crown of having the most fingers in all of Genshin, scoring at least, but not limited to, 80 fingers. This potential record holder is none other than Dottore, and while we don't know the exact number of segments that he had, there were lines from 7 different Dottores shown at the end of the Sumeru Archon quest when Dottore erased his segments. Assuming all 7 of those segments were in possession of all 10 of their fingers, and adding it together with the Dottore who did the erasing, and then just throwing in a Discottore in there because he's definitely canon, that makes at least 90 fingers. Or at least 80 if you're not counting Discottore. But similar to Razor's situation with the wolf spirit, all of the different Dottore segments are not attached to each other. If there was some sort of conglomerate of Dottore segments, then yeah, he could hold the crown. But because all of the different segments are just one single guy with 10 fingers, he can't hold the crown. This is akin to me taking a photograph of myself and being like, oh look, I had 10 fingers when I took the picture, and I have 10 fingers right now, and I'm holding the picture now, so that means I have 20 fingers. Like, no. That's not how finger math works. I mean, gosh, by those standards, that would mean Albedo has a bajillion fingers too. Now, those of you who more casually consume the Genshin lore may be wondering, why are the Hermanubis claws considered as Cyno's extra fingers rather than the hands of a completely separate entity? I will explain. Due to the nature of Cyno's connection with the Hermanubis spirit, it is widely accepted by all finger scholars that Cyno's use of the Hermanubis claws is akin to a cat. We don't assume that a cat's claws are separate from its body just because they're retracted, right? It's the same for Cyno. The Hermanubis hands are no different than a cat's claws being hidden inside of its paws. Anyway, here's the tier list based on finger supremacy. I did add in some extra tiers just for the sake of the characters who are doing a little better than they could have been. You know, there are characters like Neuvillette who didn't even have any fingers, or there's Sijuin who could have only had 2 fingers per hand. There's characters like Zhongli, who, if he stayed as the Exuvia, was only in possession of 8 fingers, if you can even call those that. Then we have those who are walking a bit of a dangerous path because of certain situations in their life. I personally feel they are the most at risk out of all the cast of, decreasing their standing in the fingered tier list. Anyway, Genshin is a very lore-rich game, so I hope this video was able to help you with your understanding and enjoyment of the game as a whole. If you enjoyed it, stick around for more.